Hello and welcome back to the shop. Today we're going to finish up a trilogy series where we take a look at multi-tools. Now this is the North American Milwaukee multi-tool. You'll recognize your hex adapter, your drill chuck, your offset for cabinet work, and your 90. And this is a great tool. There's a lot of videos out there about it. It's very versatile. I'm not going to run it through paces. We're just going to talk about it today, and we're going to compare it to its predecessors. Yes, its predecessors. There was other versions of this tool before this came out, and I like to take a look at the differences, and maybe we could see how they evolved over time. So we'll just leave this kind of here for now. Try and put some of the components out of the way, and we'll start the whole thing all the way back with the M12 series. When it first came out, M12 tools, the beginnings of this started right here with your classic M12 3/8 drive drill. This was the first version of the drill that came out. It's just a nice drill. It worked well. They did not have a ton of power. They were not brushless, but they were an upgrade, because prior to this, what you would have had was this, the Power Plus 3/8 drill, and that was the 3/8 drill that was available before this. So you can see that the M12 is not as bulky. It's more compact. The batteries were more compact. They lasted longer. This too was 12 volt, but it's just a little bit different. Now, one thing this has going for it is the chuck will close to 0, whereas the M12, you started getting that gap down in the chuck, which, you know, normally is okay, but it is a difference. So there's our beginner, the M12, the first M12 3/8 drill. Then that drill changed over to this drill, and this is a great drill. They still sell it today, to my knowledge. This is 2024. I believe this drill is still available. It's not fuel, but it is refined, and it's a nice drill. None of these are hammer drills or anything like that. They're just drill drivers. Now, why are we bringing up drill drivers? These are T-handle drills. This is not a T-handle drill. This is basically a D-handle drill. Well, shortly after this came out in Europe, this came out. And that is essentially this drill, but the chuck's removed on it. And what they did was they put a quick connect chuck system on it. So there's your chuck, there's the offset. You see here, it's early form, not quite as compact, but it is there. And your 90. So you have a 90. Now, one thing I'll say about this is the 90 does not have the castellations on it, so you can't put the other attachments and index them on the 90. You can put the other attachments on, but you'll have to hold them yourself. Now, look at how this is made. You have the castellations inside here that will index it. The tools have the maxing castellations, the 90 also. You have a hex driver. If you notice, missing from this set is the hex driver chuck, and that's something that just wasn't on these. So this is a 3-piece, extra piece set, and there's your first version right here. It didn't have a whole lot of frills to it. This is just a hex in a hex, and that's what drives it. Works well. It's a great tool to have in the shop. I really enjoy using it. It is the T-handle that you're used to. You have your direction changing right where muscle memory has it. It is not all awkward like what they tried to reinvent the wheel here on this version. Now, after this, they actually did an upgrade. Milwaukee in North America would have upgraded to fuel drills in an M12, and it was 1/2 inch. But the 1/2 inch had the gap, and that's okay. All the 1/2 inch drills do. But we went to 1/2 inch, well, so did the multi-tool. And you'll notice that multi-tool is exactly this. Same thing, except they took the chuck off, and they have drill chuck 90, and once again they have the offset. Again, this offset not as slim as the one that came out in North America. But here's your second version of Milwaukee multi-tool right here. 1/2 inch chuck. You can see the gap. So I don't know for sure, but I think both of these are still available in Europe. So if you have smaller bits, you can still get this 3/8 chuck drill and use your smaller bits and not have to have a chuck on a chuck. So 1/2 inch chuck, a little bit more beefy 90, and your offset. But you'll notice this 90 still doesn't have the castellations around it. They changed the driving system. It's a many position ball bearing indexing tool, which is nice. I mean, there is a lot of engagement on this. You have your 1/4 inch hex down inside there. It's down inside the 90 as well. And of course, you have your 1/4 inch hex on your offset. So the second version is very, very similar to the first version, with the exception of the driving mechanism, and this added the hammer drill function and 1/2 inch, as well as more power. But all these are M12. They all are in the same line. So there we go, which will bring us to present day in North America, the third version. And the third version is what we have here. We have the D handle, or I like to say the brass knuckles drill, which is okay. It's a nice driver. My biggest beef with it, like many other guys, is the direction changer. It's just not what we're used to. I'm sure Milwaukee has heard that 1,000 times. I don't need to go back into it. But we have a more compact offset, which I'm assuming they took input from people in Europe, and they learned that this needed to still be a little bit more compact. So that's a very nice compact offset. The 90 now has castellations on it, and if you have two 90s, you can even put them together for an offset or some goofy thing. I've actually had to use two 90s, so that's why I have two. It's nice that you can do that. You can also index the offset some way or another to get into just some god-awful spot. So that is really nice. If you put the offsets on the others, like we said, you have to hold it. So that's nice. They added the 1/4 inch chuck, which I kind of like. I was first indifferent to it. I thought, well, the others have the hex drive right in them. Is it really that big a deal? But it can be, because if you don't have tips, you know, the short tips that just go in a magnetic holder, they're not retained. And if you're driving a lot of screws or whatever, and that tip starts falling off, it gets annoying. I mean, this is nice that the option's there and you can drive, you know, you can put those tips in here. It's great, but it's only held in with a magnet. They will fall out at some point. And you have a chuck. Now this chuck is 3/8, and I think this is the only 3/8 fuel drill that's on the market. Correct me if I'm wrong. But you'll see this one does not close to zero like the European version. And that can be annoying sometimes if you have just that drill bit that won't quite close on. This is a metal chuck. The other versions chucks are not metal. They're plastic. So that is a little bit nicer. At least the outer part here is metal, so that's an advantage over the European counterparts. And overall, I don't hate this. I just don't go for it first. I go for one of the others beforehand. That doesn't mean it's bad. It just means it's not as... for me, it's not the go-to. I never trained myself great for the, you know, the muscle memory is the muscle memory. So these are a great idea. If you have multiple drill chucks, you can put a drill bit in here, put a drill bit in here, put something in each, and change them out. If you happen to have more than 190, you can create odd things, and that's always fun. So it's an expandable system, which is great. You know, one of the things that I really like is the ability to have multiple drill chucks and have different things in it, because you know, you end up with 1,000 tools out because you're drilling one thing and then you need to have another drill set up, and then there's something else that needs to happen, and then you know how it goes if you know how it goes. Overall, you can see some advancements. The 90 especially, they got pretty smart and they put castellations on it. That way you can index the other tools on the 90. So great idea. I'm glad they did that. But you can see it's pretty slim, and that's good as well. These are rubberized. The European versions of the 90 are rubberized, and the North American version of the 90 is just plastic. But I believe that allowed them to make it smaller. And in tools like this, smaller is really better. It allows you to get into tighter spots. So that was something that was kind of a win there on that a good upgrade. And then we talked about the offset. Now, I will say the European gearboxes are all metal. The North American one is all plastic. I don't know if that really matters, but the housings, you can see the European two are very, very similar. It's almost the same thing, if not the same thing, just with a different drive on the back side of it. So they didn't really evolve much in the first two versions. The third version is where they really got into it and took a look at it and redesigned it, and I think that's neat. So you have a variant here that is more compact. It is plastic, but that's a compromise. You can't always... It's just how things go with manufacturing. You gained the hex driver, which is, to me, it's a plus. It's a good thing. It's really handy for those things, and if the market they went for with this was a good move. So thought we'd take a look at this. I do not have the Bosch version or versions or Festool or any of that. I stuck with M12. I kind of like that the European versions, even though they're not sold here in North America, if you get them, your M12 batteries run them. North America is 120 volt, Europe is 240, and years ago you had to have, if you wanted to run European tools, you had to have 240 volt outlets, which a lot of guys weren't going to do. It just wasn't worth the hassle. Now, because your chargers are what charge the batteries, it doesn't matter that in Europe they're charging M12 with 240 volt, and in North America we're charging it with 120. It doesn't really matter, M12's M12, so you can sneak these cordless tools in and take advantage of them. So keep an eye out in the European market for unusual tools. We have a series that we got going, Forbidden Fruit series, and that's kind of where these are going to be at. We also have an M28 die grinder, which was not available in North America. So tools like that are kind of neat. If you're into tools like I am, keep track of that, and might be another source of getting some stuff that's fun to use. I really do like the European versions of this tool because they're T-handle, and this thing has far more power than this. It's not even close. This has the same power as your M12 FUEL half-inch hammer drill. It's the same thing. So this thing's got plenty of power. It's great. I would even say that this thing has more power than the FUEL D handle. It's probably close, and maybe one day we can test that and see if it really does, but it just seems like it does. So hopefully this was interesting. I wanted to kind of go over the evolution of the multi-tool, at least within Milwaukee. I know a lot of guys might not have even realized that this tool was the third version, and I thought that was kind of neat. I want to go over it, take a look at them, go over the differences, and see how they kind of evolved. You know, they refined how things went, made things a little bit cleaner, added a component, and went with some metal. So, as always, thanks for watching. Have a great day.